governments claim a constitution in their free national name. Those who fail to recognize this national name are classed as undesirable, subject to names, inferior and abuses with mistreatments. Citizens care to bestow on them in sequence. You sin when you violate the Constitution, clinging to names of slavery like Winfrey and Houston. That's why prophet was sent, for us to repent and go back to the ways of minds back in the days, using the religion from the mental prison. Connect back to the Moorish movement was the mission. It's still the mission, but some are dissing. Rights for granted, privileges, the current position. If you think his principles are not for redemption, go to the government officials and mention. In a tone intelligent, they would render replies to test the sight in darkness, not with the both eyes. The wealth of all nations is gold and silver. Standards make the man, not the money they give you. Commerce without citizenship by name means you have no true wealth, is what I'm saying. Enforce the Constitution, help with the mission to get back to the constitutional full position. Divine wanted by the prophet for nations. Nations is plural cause everyone needs saving. Divine wanted by the prophet for nations. Nations is plural cause everyone needs saving. Divine wanted by the prophet for nations. Nations is plural cause everyone needs saving. Divine wanted by the prophet for nations. Nations is plural cause everyone needs saving. Iron sheet standing in front Zion gates. Heaven's Gate guardsmen. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the one oak and henchman Adi squadron. Mudra's on stage to the crowd, I'm a marksman. Crosshair, your pioneer, my dress shoes are Clarks, man. No square foot shoes, rappers dressed like cowboys, in tight jeans like Aerosmith. My time's now, boy. Y'all been on the mic, some of y'all fell off the stages. You got the ancients vexed, so they got me on y'all cases. Got me on the humble, but if you get it twisted, Kumo make you crash your car and blast you with spirits. No fear none, no fear none. Ritualistics make rapping dummies limber than some wet biscuits. Rise you like Bisquick, your bank account doubles for talking arms out and making youths get in trouble. You don't have to believe it, I call it as I see it. Call me Simon, the more carrying the cross for pale Jesus. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the one oak and henchman Adi squadron. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the one oak and henchman Adi squadron. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the IHF and 2CMB squadron. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the one oak, repping for the one oak. Handshake dead, man, we all grown up. Lousy doing the art, Seb won the Grey Cup. Demolition man, a married man, call it royalty. Vending at my lectures, showing their loyalty. Agents try to flop it and bump into Orishas. Give you their nightmares like deep sea creatures. Give you bad karma, cancel karmic credit. If I put your name on it, you wish I never said it. You wish I just did it. You plotted and you schemed. I saw you visualizing the golden beam. Look through the stargate, a glimpse of the future made me see a judgment. And tell the thugs not to shoot ya. Medallions on string, thinking I'm a cheapskate. Fake Ross get locked, cut off like Brutus Beefcake. Fake Nuwapian get slapped with Dark Circle 7 and branded with Noble Drew Ali as a lesson. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the one oak and henchman Adi squadron. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the one oak and henchman Adi squadron. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the IHF and 2CMB squadron. Zion Gate opener, Heaven's Gate guardsman, repping for the one oak, repping for the one oak.
They can't defend their religious organization. They can't defend that.
You can't. And like that's what we was talking about when we break it down in town to the Masons. The Masons goes back down to the Vaticans, and the Vaticans goes back to all the daggone religions, funds all of them movements,
Exactly.
all of them's coercion, all of them you know what I'm saying, underground little connections to make their appearance and dealings on the outside be looking like they're in conflict. It's all goes and traced back to the Vatican. funded.
All right, and Manny Bay, do you want to come up on the panel? You want to come up on the panel, and Manny?
You can't claim that you're indigenous to this land, but the religion that you subscribe to doesn't. You've been either infiltrated.
Hey, Sister Beth, you drop the link. Drop the link for Manny Bay.
Can wait.
Because I want him to prove to me that America. Look here.
The nice
It's
way
the
out,
same
like
question for him. Hey, Josie, chill for a minute. I got the same question for him. I want him to prove to me that the Moors are from America. Show me resources.
Y'all give me a minute now. I'm doing my little show.
I know you're doing your little show.
Let me do what I got to do. Because I promised them that I would get the Moor stuff. So let me do it right here. Here we go. Fair use. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Don Miller,
Thank you, Sister Bethy.
Yeah, Director. Good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
So how seriously do federal officials worry about this?
Not so much right now. I mean, right now we're deep in knucklehead territory. You know, the Moorish Science Church at one point had 30,000 members in the 1930s, later up to 60,000 members. But
Now, keep in mind, anytime you hear anybody, I don't care what they look like, anybody who tells you that Moors have churches, know that they're operatives. There's no way that Moors have churches. Because when you research churches, you find out that all those used to be Moorish temples. And how did these people get Moorish temples in order to turn them into churches all around the world? How did they get temples to be churches? They colonized people. They raped and pillaged and murdered. That's how they did it. Burned people at the stake. Put vagina pairs in women. Iron Maiden. That's how they were able to do that. So when you hear someone equate Moors to church, know automatically that anything they say after that is probably going to be colorable and it's probably going to be a fraud. Because there's nothing ever that existed that was a Moorish church. And if we're talking about, you know, these buildings that people talk about, the only Moorish church is the broken circle on the cover of the Quran. The church means circle. And then if it's broken, obviously it's not a circle because it's broken. But for the sake of argument, if there is a Moorish circle, a Moorish church, it's the Moorish circle that's broken on the Holy Quran. That nobody else ever brought a circle that was a Moor like that.
estimates are now that this might be a couple of thousand people left as adherents. This is not them. This is a splinter group, an offshoot of opportunists. And the Moorish Science Church have attracted groups like that before.
But that go, we didn't even let it get through.
All right.
Church have attracted groups like that before.
Don Miller, he
Thank
is
you, Sister Bethy.
Yeah, Director. Good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
So how seriously do federal officials worry about this?
Not so much right now. I mean, right now we're deep in knucklehead territory. You know, the Moorish Science Church at one point had 30,000 members in the 1930s, later up to 60,000 members. But
How come he's starting you off at 1930? How come he's talking about the Moorish Science Church and he's going back to 1930 and he's talking about how deep you are in knucklehead territory? How come this federal whoever who has the FBI papers and all that stuff is talking about Moorish Science Church from 1930? Because they know that's what they have jurisdiction over, because that's when they sent in their traders and their sellouts. They can't talk about Moorish anything before 1930 because Noble Drew Ali was around who could talk for himself and talk on behalf of Moors worldwide. And then Moors took on that pattern to say this is about the nation. This is not about the organization. This is not about the church or the temple. This is about nationhood. This is about nationhood. And the only people who are speaking up for nation, as far as our people are concerned, who are classified as whatever and everything that they're classified as, we're the only ones that told people about nationality, Moors. Everybody else is playing games. Everybody else is playing around with you. No one spoke from a nationality perspective. But remember, how these people tell on themselves is that they have to give the dates. So as soon as they give the date of 1930 and they're talking about Moors and Noble Drew Ali or whatever, they're not talking about Noble Drew Ali. They're talking about all the traders after Noble Drew Ali died. Because that's where they have jurisdiction. Because they're modern Europeans who infiltrated the Moorish movement, UNIA, you name it, that was for our people, they infiltrated it. And sent in their whoever's to make sure we stay unorganized. And they're making sure we stay unorganized. And while people are trying to tell you about trust and all this other BS and discharge this and that, we're telling you it's about nationality. It's not about start a temple. What are you starting a temple to do what? You can't even get people right now. You think you're going to have some edifice and then they're going to show up? There's going to be you in there. Our people don't want to be free. Our people don't want freedom. Our people want to be these people's nigger. That's what they want. So they're catering to the niggers right now, how these people are talking. Because these are the Aboriginal Indigenous people. And again, why are the Aboriginal and Indigenous people, right, using slander from some colonists who's the Indigenous people's enemy, and they're using that to make Moors look like we don't know what we're talking about? And have you think that Moors don't know what we're talking about? Because these people's news broadcasts that these Indigenous people are using as a reference point is saying that these Moors are a bunch of knuckleheads. These Moors with their church and their hats and all that stuff, and you think that they're just some Negroes and black guys just trying to... No, we're not. Bet you we're not. Because this is not some stuff just yesterday. It's just yesterday. It's not some just yesterday thing. Right? We had Moors in 2011 stepping up on behalf of Moors Not on behalf of themselves and give me 500, give me 12,000 or whatever like that. Right? This is what Moors did for you that none of these Aboriginal, Indigenous, whoever's did for you, but they're going to talk crazy about Moors. But this is what Moors did for you. While all these people were selling you out since 2011, still selling you out today. And you still don't get it. Right? So because Moors are students of Noble Drew Ali. Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, go to those who know law. Go to those people who know law. And you let them know and then see what happens. Right? So, not only did he tell Moors, go to those who know law, but with regard to law, he told Moors specifically that there's going to be an Asiatic president and a European vice president. When you see that happen, know that that's your sign from me that it's time to do what you're supposed to do. And then that happened, and Moors did nothing. Except this little pocket of Moors over here that everybody keeps trying to tie to some sovereign citizen, paper terrorists, OIR, PDs doing investigation to see if this is really a religious thing and all. This has nothing to do with religion. So Moors, 2011 is our timeline as far as what have the Moors done with regard to anything that's happening right now, anything that was happening back then that should have stopped and shouldn't even be happening right now. But you don't want to go on the side of the Moors. You want to follow all the different traders and whoever else. Right? So in 2011, when the Moors realized that Barack Obama's in office, then the Moors realized that he's saying he's not black, he's Kenyan. And the Moors realized that he's going on the world talking about the relationship between the Moroccans and the United States and all that stuff like that. That all happened at the signing of UN stuff. Without him signing on to the UN declarations, everything that I'm saying means nothing. But because he did it, and then right after him, Stephen Harper did it over here, and then they only did it because they got this same thing that we took, and on behalf of Moors, we sent it out to everybody over here. Because when we checked the record, Noble Drew Ali said we're Moorish American. So if we're Moorish American, I'm not going to recreate the wheel. Why would I recreate the wheel? Why don't I just go check the record and see what Moors have done something for Moors? Easy find. These Moors, Great Seal National Association of Moorish Affairs, okay. What did they do? They put a public notice to all public servant governors and the head person that it was addressed to was President Barack Obama. And the first line lets you know the integrity. Greetings from the Moorish nation. Not greetings from their little club that they started. Not greetings from their temple that they made up. Not greetings from the organization, association that they made up. Greetings from the Moorish nation. Not greetings from some consular court BS that wasn't even around in 2011. Remember, 2011. This is not being sent out by Moorish consular court. This is not being sent out because you got a Matt D passport calling that a travel document. There was none of that right now. Right now we're talking about only active Moors. 2011. Right? Remember, time, though cyclical, is a measurement. So you can use that to check to see if stuff is right or not. Because numbers don't lie. Right? So we're going 2011. We're talking about pre the Aboriginal, Indigenous, whoever's. Pre them. Anybody who's saying they're Aboriginal, black, or whatever like that, feathers jumping around, doing madness, that's some BS. Powwows and whatever. What are you talking about? We're founders of civilizations. That's what we're subjected to. The powwow, beat some drums and run around. And then you're talking about, yeah, it's with the ancestors and all that stuff, and the ancestors aren't coming out and strangling all these people who are violating people's rights. What kind of ancestors you got? You're doing all this dancing up and down the place or whatever, and people still getting murdered. Indigenous women still missing where you're dancing. Indigenous children missing where you're dancing. Children dying senselessly because of people's ignorance where you're dancing. You're in videos shaking your ass and whatever. You want to know how come ain't nothing going on? Because you're not acting like your foremothers and forefathers. Who, we have the template, again, 2011, of some people acting like our foremothers and forefathers on behalf of all of us being dumb niggers. Speaking up on our behalf. All we have to do is say that we're Moors. That's all. Everything's done. Since 2011, everything was done. Right? Why? Because it's on the prophecy that it was done. It wasn't done because of some selfish whatever. It was done because of the prophecy that this man in the 1920s, with all this nigger stuff going on, right? Man in the 1920s said that there's going to be a time when there's going to be an Asiatic president and a European vice president. He said that in the 20s, during a time where nigger can't even get in office. Nigger can't even go through a door with a European. You have to look at this thing with Noble Juali in it at all times. You have to. Noble Juali has to be up front. Because he sets the stage. This is a prophecy of his manifesting. In our time, we're living to see it. And certain Moors who were on a higher level took that as a sign. Took that as a sign. Acted on it on behalf of Moors. Remember, this is before Moorish consulate and all that. Where were they in 2011? When Moors were putting in this work? On behalf of the Moorish nation, not on behalf of some individual. For the Moors as a whole. We're telling you something's up. But if you're not going to use your own volition, us telling you, I mean, you can't say that you weren't told. And then when you do get whatever you're supposed to get, we're right there to tell you we told you so. Because we know Noble Drew Ali is the man. We know he's the man. We're going to keep bringing it up. How come nobody asked themselves when they hear about Noble Drew Ali, they never ask themselves, how come I never heard about Noble Drew Ali? Like, how is it that you celebrated Black History Month all these years, upon years, our parents celebrating it and all that stuff? We got it. And he's not mentioned at all? When all these other people are mentioned? He's not mentioned at all? No mention of Noble Drew Ali whatsoever? Nothing? Oh, unless it's some religious Moorish church, whatever, people stealing houses. That's what they want you to think Noble Drew Ali is about. Playing you out your own stuff. That the prophecy manifested 2011 that he's the man. And nobody can say anything. I don't care what they say and who they think they are. If they're not riding with Noble Drew Ali, they're definitely a traitor to the cause as a whole. Forget little organizations or whatever. The cause of violating, committing treason on the nation, not the Moorish Science Temple, not the Grand Body and the Supreme Grand Council, the Moorish nation. When did Black history become a thing? Black history's never been a thing. Nobody's down with Black history. Nobody's down with Black history. What do you mean nobody's down with Black history? If people were down with Black history, they would stop doing stuff during February on behalf of the slaves who died for the whatever. They're going to go march and picket for a whale that got hit by a boat. Shut the place down. But when our people get murdered or whatever, that ain't nothing. That's regular stuff. That's normal. There is no black anything. No one respects that. And then you have Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. Doing his interview, told him, I don't want Black History Month. Where's White History Month? Oh, well, I don't want a White History Month because I'm Jewish. But he looked like a European. So doesn't that let you know that they know they're not white? Because remember, just like they do with the black whatever, he's speaking on behalf of them. He's their boy. Yeah, I don't want White History Month. I'm not white. What are you talking about? And over our people's head. Missed it. Missed it. Okay. Missed it. This is what they want you to think Moors are about, not what we just talked about. This is where they want, as soon as you hear Moors, this is where they want your mind to go and how they're looking at it. Which again, these are the colonists, and then these are the indigenous people who got conquered by the colonists, but they're using the colonists' reference points of Moors to try to prove that we're not Moors. When a Moor is any dark-skinned person, especially an African Negro. Any dark-skinned person. Don't worry about African Negro. Don't worry about that. dark-skinned person. So if every Aboriginal and Indigenous tribe of the Americas are dark-skinned people, what does that mean? Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. If Moors means any dark-skinned people, if Moors means any dark-skinned people, and the Aboriginal Indigenous people of the Americas are dark-skinned people, what would you call the people of North and South America and Central America and the islands? What do you call them? What would be their name? Is that metaphysical? Is that high science? Is it something that crazy? This is biology or something? It's not that crazy. It's real simple. We're not some people hating on our people and all this and whatever like that. We're a nation. We already know that we're a nation. We're trying to bring you up to speed so you can be part of the nation, so we can actually get some stuff done instead of playing this game. But of course the game is going to be played because you're dealing with operatives on the other side. The unconscious people who are trying to be conscious. And then the ones who do have some information, getting those people who want to be on this side. Why don't they want to be on this side? Because of stuff like this.
Estimates are now that this might be a couple of thousand people left as adherents. This is not them. This is a splinter group, an offshoot of opportunists. And the Moorish Science Church have attracted groups like that before. Remember, as Chip told us, there was Jeff Ford, who was with the El Rukn's gang and made a deal with Gaddafi. There was no...
Right. They know. Because if they're going to talk about El Rukn, which is the... Remember, El Rukn is the... what Black Peastone declared their nationality. Now they're El Rukn. So you can't say El Rukn and say Jeff Fort. You can't say El Rukn and say Jeff Fort. Because we know Jeff Fort nationalized. He wasn't Negro, black, colored. So if he nationalized, how come they didn't say his national name when they said El Rukn? Because if they're talking about El Rukn, you're not talking about the gang now. You're not talking about the gang. When you say El Rukn, you're not talking about the gang. What do you think all of them had fezzes and all that stuff for? And turbans? Because they were a gang? Really? You can't stop a people who are going to fend for themselves. No nation. If they're saying El Rukn, but they have a Moorish flag, then that means they're Moorish. They're not El Rukn. They're not El Rukn. They didn't lock him up as a national. They locked him up as Jeff Fort. That's the whole point. Go check. When he writes you back, it's going to say Chief Malik L. But when you send stuff, it's going to Jeff Fort. Well, he proclaimed his nationality, so how come he wasn't able, whatever? The same reason why they're talking about him right now, propaganda. That's why they got him in Supermax. No access to him or whatever. Why do you think they're doing that for? The issue was the people after him, just like with all the other leaders. People don't study. They want to be follower. And then when you're following, the guy goes off the cliff, you're either going off the cliff with him, or you're going to go the other direction. And now you don't even know what to do with yourself because the whole time you've been following this dummy. But then there's the side of Drew Ali, who he wasn't dumb. He wasn't leading you anywhere that you don't want to go. Jeff Fort wasn't leading people anywhere that they didn't want to go. Because it wasn't about Jeff Fort. It was about Chief Malik. And Chief Malik is a Moor. Jeff Fort was gangbanger guy. Jeff Fort was Malcolm Little. Then they come and he's telling you today, yeah, Malcolm Little did something or whatever like that. You're not going to take them serious. So are you taking these people serious? They said Jeff Fort when you know that's Chief Malik. And you know he's an L. And you know that they were Moors. Hard body. This wasn't some organization, gang, whatever. But they're going to pitch it like that to get you to look at Noble Drew Ali and the Moors and whatever as some European psychology perspective. When that's not what this is. This is an op. And then the op is being used against you by Moors who call themselves Aboriginal, Indigenous or whatever because they don't want to be who their foremothers and forefathers were. And since they don't want to be who their foremothers and forefathers were, that means that's treason. If you're not going to be your ancient foremothers and forefathers, that's treason. Because they laid the foundation for why you're here. Why do you think the devil stands on this stuff? Because the devil's repping for this devil foremothers and forefathers. And then you're chasing men and idols. And all these people who mean absolutely nothing. And your foremothers and forefathers you neglect. And want to know how come your conditions suck. Because you don't honor your foremothers and forefathers. And the ones who don't follow their foremothers and forefathers, they are ruthless. They have no ruth. They're motherless. If a fatherless guy is a bastard, what's a motherless guy? A motherless guy is the lowest of the lows. Like the mother said, you could tell a man by the way he treats his mom. Because she already knows, shit, if you don't respect your mom and shit, you ain't getting none of this. Treasonous people.
An RCL Baptiste in 2005 in Miami who plotted to blow up the Sears Tower and was caught in an thing. There's this scam, which actually takes parts of an old scam from California. common to Eastern European gangsters of squatting in houses, claiming ownership, and mixing in with references
Eastern
squatting
European.
law.
Is the word scam
Eastern European.
artist, or is this a legitimate?
Did she say Eastern European?
concern?
Well, this is America, so any religion's a legitimate religion if its adherents say so. What this is a religion that has attracted scam artists before as fringe groups and offshoots who want to reshape the religion to use for their own purposes, whether that was linking up with Gaddafi, a terrorist plot in Miami, or in this case, these silly scams where they claim to have diplomatic status, can't be prosecuted, property rights, and so on. So not dangerous right now, but certainly very annoying.
Thanks, John.
All right, okay, all right, hey, this is the Befty. That's fine.
So their usage of this is to divert your attention away from what Noble Drew Ali brought you. So then once they get your attention, and then this is a pattern that all of them do, whether it's so calling it indigenous, whether they're calling it Moorish, whether they're calling it Kemetic, whether they're calling it sovereign, whatever. As soon as they start moving from, okay, we talk bad about this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, the next thing is to bring you in to what they're doing. Right? To bring you in to what they're doing. Right? Remember the dates, right? So they're saying July 4th, 2020 is their date of their proclamation. These Aboriginal, Indigenous, whoever's. Because remember, they got your attention because now you think Moors are claiming houses and whatever like that. So now you don't want nothing to do with Moors because you're not trying to get arrested and all that stuff. You just want to live your life, free as a... And then here they come talking about you going to be indigenous. We'll be the indigenous people, the Aboriginal Americans, the copper-colored natives who were on the American continent before Europeans came here. Declaration to correct our identity and re-establish our natural rights for those misclassified as coloreds, Negroes, blacks, and African Americans via the Racial Integrity Act of 1724 in the United States Corporation of America and or the United States of America. This declaration dated July 4th, 2020 is in response to the intrusion, killing, indoctrination through the United States of America's educational systems, forced integration due to the surrendering of ongoing wars, and the reclassification of our ancestors' race identity, the copper-colored American Indians of North America, whose ancestors' race identity was classified as follows within the United States Corporation of America: coloreds, Negroes, black, African American, over a period of 4 or more centuries. 4 or more centuries. Okay, 4 or more centuries. So if these are Aboriginal Indigenous people, how come their reference point is 1900s? Why is their reference point 1900s? Why is their reference point 4 or more centuries? Now let's just see what because remember this is 2020. Let's see what the Moors did on behalf of. Let's see what the Moors said. Now you be the judge based on the contents. on who's really on the right side of this thing called the freedom of our people. Right, let's analyze these two written documents that are supposed to go to these people who are colonizing you in order for them to stop colonizing you. Right. Greetings from the Moorish nation. As you are aware, the Moors of northwest Amexem are Aboriginal indigenous to this land, as affirmed in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787 to 1836, recorded in the congressional records of the United States of America and its many enclaves. As such, the United States of America and all enclaves, agents, agencies, registered corporations, contractors, et al., are all obligated to the United States Republic Constitution, Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787 to 1836, and all contracts and engagements entered into before the adoption of the United States Republic Constitution as affirmed in Article 6. All debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made, under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as to qualifications to any office or public trust under the United States. These compacts, treaties, all affirm the following. As Moorish American nationals, jus sanguinis, we are protected under international law, the United States Republic Constitution, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship 1787 to 1836, and the Zodiac Constitution. Jus sanguinis, citizenship is not determined by place of birth, but by having a parent who are citizens of the nation. Jus sanguinis rights are mandated by international treaty, with citizenship definitions imposed by the international community. Now that's their first paragraph. And they're talking on behalf of the Moors. And then you have these groveling Negroes over here calling themselves indigenous, who don't want to just get down with this, but want to recreate the wheel. And then they recreate the wheel, and it's triangle, and then you're talking about, let's go to their class. We're going to make triangle wheels. You absolutely lost your mind if you're going with the indigenous writ and you're not going with this one. If you're going with their stuff, what they're saying, and you're not going what the Moors are saying, you're tripping. You're tripping. This declaration does not include the Native American Indians created by the United States Corporation of America in the early 1900s, Africans or European descendants. Thus, we copper-colored American Indians were senators and representatives of our states in the 1700s and the 1800s, and our true identities were washed away as if we never existed and replaced with false identities, and lied that we all died of disease. It's not true because we are still here. We exist today. this declaration only pertains to the copper-colored American Indians of North America who assimilated within the United States Corporation of America and their descendants' posterity as outlined above. Now, all these Europeans know is that the copper-colored is a coon. It's one of their favorite songs by George Kunkel. That nasty little copper-colored coon. So we know that we're the Americans. And we know that we're the copper-colored natives that were in this land before Europeans came here. But we're not copper-colored, because a copper-colored is a coon. If you don't have a nationality, you don't count. Copper-colored is not a nationality. That doesn't count. That's a fiction. They have that in their paperwork that you're this fiction, a copper-colored Native American. And then, on top of that, this is again what these Europeans know with regard to all these names that they're calling all these indigenous people, all these different names. There are a number of Native Americans out there who don't mind being called Indians, while at the same time, there are those who would argue that Native American itself is incorrect. For example, Pete Giove Forwinds had this to say on the matter of the various labels on Native Americans over the course of time. I take the position that American Indian is preferable to me for two reasons. First, in general, I am not particularly supportive of the concept of political correctness, though I do apply it as necessary. In 2016, I can't very well walk through life being a dickhead. Second, as it applies to the indigenous population of this country, the term Native American was coined by Congress. Despite being a long-time government employee, I believe there are some areas Congress has no business. Ideally, the proper term to use to refer to someone is whatever tribe or nation that person comes from or identifies with, Mohawk in my case. But with over 500 identified tribes in the United States, that's nearly impossible unless you know a person very well. So they told you that they're telling you that they're copper-colored American Indians. They're copper-colored American Indians, and they want you to be a copper-colored American Indian with them, which that's not an identity of Aboriginal and Indigenous people. That is a fiction. Now, the other question you have to ask yourself, if you're a thinker, is when we get down to the end of this thing right here, and they say, sign here, what name you signing this in? If you're telling me you're signing this in a Negro, Black, Colored name, then what you said on this doesn't mean a damn thing. It doesn't mean a damn thing. But see, this is why you ride with Moors. You see what the Moors have set up for you is that you have to declare your name change first. Because what happened is you start going around talking about your conscience and you're still calling yourself John Jeffries. You're playing yourself. Because the fact of the matter, you can't do a contract as a slave, as a ward, as a minority. So you do your name correction and you correct the change. Because remember, we were Moors. Then they started calling us black. And then we went with the fact that we're black. We embraced it, so it was a change. But what you really want to do is correct it. Because the error is not yours. They misclassified you. You're just returning to your ancestral lineage. And then this is before 2011. How are they talking crazy about Moors? Showing you their little paperwork that they're telling you got to go to a notary or whatever. You got to go to a notary over here. Then when you go to this paperwork, you're seeing them talking about witnesses. How come they're talking about witnesses? And then the Aboriginal Indigenous people are talking about go to a notary. If they're Aboriginal and Indigenous, shouldn't they just be notarizing their own stuff if they're in their own land? Why are they going to a colonist? Because even if it's an Asiatic, if he has a notary power, he's pretending to be a colonist. They're pretending to be the colonists? They're pretending to be the colonists. If they're Asiatic. Right? Due to the colonization of the land area commonly known as the Western Hemisphere, more specifically North America and the surrounding islands, the copper-colored American Indians of these lands have been systematically gentrified and misclassified as descendants of black racial groups associated with Africa, i.e. mulatto, Negro, colored, black, and the African American. Now, remember, if their date is July 4th, 2020, right? July 4th, 2020, and they're saying that the copper-colored American Indians of these lands have been misclassified as descendants of black racial groups associated with Africa, then if in the 1920s Nobuju Ali said, "It is most earnestly hoped that the Moorish Science Temple of America will not in any way be confused with any Back to Africa movement." Who's copying from who? Who's copying from who? If Nobuju Ali said, F the Back to Africa movement in the 1920s, how are these Aboriginal people claiming they're Aboriginal Where were they in the 1920s? Talking up like Noble Drew Ali's talking up. That we're not from back to Africa. Don't confuse this with the Moorish movement. Don't confuse the Moorish movement with any back to Africa. Don't confuse the two. Confusing the two is going to get you in problems you actually don't want to be in. Right, and then they got articles in here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 14, 16. 16 articles. Right, 16 articles. Noble Drew Ali told Moors that you are a nation. Gave us constitution, gave us national headwear, national flag, national prayer, national everything. In order for it to start. Remember, their reference point is 1930 with the Moorish American Church, the Moorish Science Church. Those are the sellouts. That's not who we are as Moors. We know those people are the sellouts that they're referring to. They're not referring to the organic Moors who were down with Noble Drew Ali. They're referring to the traders after, who we know that they're traders after. It's like we don't know. We know. Their job is to make you be confused. We're not in this. We're putting you on game. We're not in this. We already know what's up. All these people sold you out, stole Noble Drew Ali stuff, stole Moors stuff that they've been doing to save our people. Say something different over here, say something different over there, put a different spin on it, and put it out as if it's their stuff when they got it from Moors. Right? Now you heard how they were talking. Again, right? Language. Who you riding with? If you really have to present yourself, you're going to present it like how they did, or you're going to present it like how this is presented. Moors, Moorish American Moors, have proclaimed and possess the unalienable, substantive rights and birthright inheritance of our Al-Moroccan names and nationality by nature's laws, divine law, primogeniture, and by the recognized laws of the nations of the earth, international, being the true ancient aboriginal indigenes of the land, America, north being the heartland of the Moroccan Empire. Moors, M-O-O-R-S, or M-U-U-R-S, are the de jure freeholders by birthright, inheritance, and primogeniture status, and have claim and possess the secured rights to travel upon the public roadways, byways, highways of our continental United States, organic land, absent of the foreign, colored, or imposed excise taxation constructs invented by the racketeering states' legislatures to abridge and steal the rights belonging to the natural people. These substantive rights are supported by and asserted by royal law, Moorish law, Muslim/Muslim law, the law of the Great Peace, the laws of nature, divine law, nature's God, the laws of nations, the free Moorish Great Seal Zodiac Constitution, and affirmed by Articles 4 and 6 of the Constitution Covenant of the 1774 to 1781 1201 Moorish calendar, as lawfully adopted for the United States Republic, established its republican form of government. Said Constitution established the people's supreme law of the land to secure the rights of the people, to keep the government bound and in check by official oath and official bond. Down from the ancient ones, our primogenitors, come the supreme law of the land. Who you riding with? You riding with the indigenous people who are calling you a coon? They're calling you coon. You're riding with them. We're saying we're not coons. We're not Negroes, blacks, coloreds, anything like that. We're Moors. That's where we're at with it. Their agenda is to get you to not want anything to do with your nationality and birthrights. That's the agenda. You're either gonna prosper or fold. And it ain't nothing personal. That's just what it is. Because your own sold you out, and they're still selling you out, talking crazy to you about your nationality, and you don't even see it.
There's more.
Mr. Beffy.
Did you know you can go to Liberty
Are you playing another one? Okay.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Really?
All right.
This ain't no
You may not have
infiltrate.
heard of the Moorish Nationals, but police have members claim to follow Moorish science. It comes from a black religious group
Fair
that's been
use.
around for nearly a century. Most of its members obey the law, but not everyone. Chip Reed looks at how some use their religion to justify the crime.
This 35,000 square foot mansion in an exclusive corner of Bethesda, Maryland.
No. For them to be using this in 2021, when, you know how long ago this was? Like, you know, they're pulling some stuff to try to use it to slander Moors from years ago. Why are they pulling this stuff from years ago? Why don't they show you right now? Why are they pulling some years ago stuff? Why don't they show you right now what's going on with Moors? Because there's nothing to show. You're going to be part of this to see what this is about. There's nothing to show. Nothing. The Moors are going to come out with a red building with a green star on it, and then that means that the Moors have arrived. The Moors been arrived. You're behind. And your backwardness is why we can't get anything done as a people. Because opposed to saying that we're Moors, since Noble Drew Ali's Cherokee, which means he's Aboriginal and Indigenous, if he's Aboriginal and Indigenous and he's saying, I'm a Moor, then what's wrong with Aboriginal people? Drew Ali's Cherokee. How is Drew Ali Cherokee saying he's Moors, but then these people are talking crazy about Moors? And then they're not Moors because Moors are from Africa. But then they're going to tell you about there's Aboriginal Indigenous writing that's older than Arabic that looks like Arabic. So what's that tell you? Wouldn't that mean the original Arabs, which the Arabs are Moors, right, would have been over here? Wouldn't that let you know that these people are the same people if they're talking the same language across the Atlantic Ocean? Obviously, they're the same people. obviously they're not different if they're talking the same language. I mean, come on now. How dumb are people? Moors are African. Okay, like what part of that means they're not American? Okay, Moors are African. Well, what does that mean? If over here and over here and over there and everywhere over there was one landmass, all the different places over here were connected, all the places over there were connected, and then the whole thing was connected. If it's all connected and it's separated, these are the same people, dark-skinned people, but they want to play that there's something else. And then in playing that there's something else, they're going to put out misleading information to get you, to deter you from getting on the side of recognizing your Moorish nationality and your birthrights, and have you in everything else, thinking that there's salvation there. When there's no salvation without nationality. Nationality is a prerequisite to being saved, whether by some ancestral, angelic, whatever, or whether on the earth plane. Wake up. So you might think that it's a joke because, you know, you're looking at things and I don't see anything the Moors are doing and talking like that. That stuff's right in your face and you can't even see it. There are people who are deaf, dumb, and blind and want to be that way. They're willing to be that way. They're willing to follow the lies about their nationality and birthrights, not research it to know what it is for themselves for sure, but let them get into some stuff with children's services or get into some madness with highwaymen or whatever. Guess who they're calling? You wouldn't want to guess who they're calling. Guess who they're calling? When they tried to discharge some debt or something like that, and these people stole their property back because they didn't want to hear what the Moors were saying. They thought they got this. We don't need nationality. We got this. All right. People come out telling you that they only kill you, black people. You don't worry about nobody else has to worry. And then nobody's worrying, and the only people worrying are the people who call themselves Negro, black, colored, and Aboriginal and Indigenous and whatever. And they don't get it. But it is what it is. Honors to all the Moors worldwide, those who know the truth about their nationality and their birthrights. Those who know the truth about their nationality and birthrights. Honors to all the Moors. Supreme honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Praise Allah for letting us know about his greatness and letting us know what they did. And we're not gonna get mad. We're just gonna get wise. Not gonna get mad. We're gonna get wise. Peace and love to all the Moors worldwide. Don't forget tonight, Blog Talk Radio, MHHS Eyes Wide Open, 9 p.m. The mother is going in as usual. As usual. Peace and love to all the Moors and also Sons of Allah this Thursday, 9 p.m. MHHS Eyes Wide Open on Blog Talk Radio and Canaanland Moors YouTube this Thursday. Sons of Allah. Peace and love to all. Islam.